Greetings, upstanders. Dr. O here, and I was reading this article by an organization called The Third Way, which describes itself as a national think tank and advocacy organization that champions moderate policy and political ideas. And they say our work on the center left acts as a critical bulwark against political extremism. And they put out an article called Was It Something I Said, which talks about the language that Democrats need to stop using if they want to be able to be successful in the midterms and in 2028. And to be quite honest, when I look at this list and I read what they're actually saying, it's extremely problematic. It's extremely problematic because there are 90 million people that didn't vote in the last election for lots of different reasons. Some Israel Palestine, just some but other issues like people feeling Democrats weren't strong enough on social issues and the like. And this mindset, this mentality of Democrats need to stop using certain language and stop sounding, so woke, and that's how they're going to get here and to the next level. And people like Alyssa Slotkin out of Michigan, and people like Gavin Newsom saying we can't be weak and woke. And it looks like some of them are following this think tank's advice. Now, listen to some of these words that I might read all of them, I don't know, but they have it broken down into categories. This is the language that they feel that people should stop using if they want to get your vote. This is what they have to do to sound like quote unquote normal people. Now, you tell me what this idea of normal means, right? Because it sounds like coded language to me, but they broke it down into categories. One category is therapy speak. These words say, I'm more empathetic than you, and you are callous to hurting others' feelings. So don't use privilege, violence, as in environmental violence, dialoguing, othering, triggering, microaggression, assault, invalidation, progressive stack, centering, safe space, holding space, body shaming, which I'm especially going to come back to later. Don't use seminar room language, subverting norms, systems of oppression, critical theory, which basically is saying critical race theory, cultural appropriation, postmodernism, Overton window, heuristic, existential threat to climate, the planet, democracy, the economy. Organizer jargon, radical transparency, small d democracy, barriers to participation, stakeholders, the unhoused, food insecurity, housing insecurity, person who immigrated. These are their words, as you'll see in the article that's linked below. Oh, here we go. Gender orientation correctness, birthing person, inseminated person, pregnant people, chest feeding, cisgender, dead naming, heteronormative, patriarchy, LGBTQIA+. The shifting language of racial constructs. Don't use Latinx, BIPOC, allyship, intersectionality, minoritized communities. Oh, you want to explain away crime? These terms say the criminal is the victim is an afterthought. Don't use terms like justice involved, carceration, incarcerated people, and involuntary confinement. Are you kidding me? And they end the article by saying, we will never abandon our values or stop doing things to protect those who need help, encouragement, trust, a second chance, acceptance, a fair shake, and the opportunity to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. But as the catastrophe of Trump 2.0 has shown, the most important thing we can do for these people and causes is to build a bigger army to fight them. Communicating in authentic ways that welcome rather than drive voters away would be a good start. So it's inauthentic for me to say incarcerated people. See, this is one of the things the article does not do, is it doesn't provide the alternative words. What words should people be using, right? There's no conversation about that. So I can't sit here and look at the over-representation of people that look like me in the prison system, and I can't talk about incarcerated people. I can't see the people getting swept up in these ICE raids and say incarcerated people. What am I supposed to call them as they're being sent to these, detention centers? What am I supposed to call them? Am I not supposed to say police vans? Like, am I supposed to use the racist term towards Irish people? Talk about paddy wagons? Like, what are we supposed to do here? Mass incarceration is a whole industry, but I can't say incarcerated? How does that even work? I can't say justice involved? How else do we have reform without justice? This idea of the racial constructs. Now, look, I despise the word BIPOC. I talk about it in my Lies About Black People book. I got chapters on it for various reasons. But to sit here and say we can't talk about, I don't like the term allies. But the fact that, but I also propose other things like from allyship, we should actually use terms like actual partnering, because allies are like fans who go to the sports game and they are fine whether their team wins or loses, versus a partner who is in the game fighting for that ring, fighting for the championship, and if they lose, everybody else loses. Like, I give examples. How are you going to go? Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw popularized the term intersectionality. You can't. So if you can't say intersectionality, what do you use? If we want to talk about the pay gap, the wealth gap, and we want to talk about what men make on the dollar to women, and you say men make $1 for every dollar men make, women make 75 cents on the dollar, Dr. Crenshaw says that, well, you have to have a deeper conversation. It's not men necessarily, it's white men make this, because the salary gap between white men and black men is different, or Latino, it's different. Furthermore, that 75 cents on the dollar that women make might be for white women, and it might be 68 cents on the dollar for black women, 54 cents on the dollar for Latinas, 80 cents on the dollar for Asian women. That's an intersectional conversation, and research has been done about this. That's not supposed to be broken down so people can sound like they're talking to normal people. Does normal mean white suburban mothers? If that's what you mean, just come out and say it. But how can we not have So you're saying, what, talk about intersectionality, but don't say the word? Like, how is that not supposed to be discussed? And the fact of the matter is, I'm going to go to some of these other language. So we can't say LGBTQIA+, what are we supposed to say? Just simply label everybody in that community homosexual? I'm sure you meant to put trans up on here as well. Just ignore that? Just, like, there are, quote unquote, normal people who want to have these conversations. And as I mentioned in one of my other posts, racism is a kitchen table issue. It's a kitchen table issue. So to sit here and say that we can't, now I can have conversations about whether language is extra and so on and so forth, but this idea that trying to have conversations about gender and orientation correctness is losing people, is losing voters, when at the same time the Trump administration is getting rid of things like LGBTQ options on the suicide prevention hotline. Like, what are we doing here? What are we talking about here? This makes no sense. Organizer jargon. You can't use stakeholders? What do you say? People say small d democracy so they don't sound like they're only caping for the Democratic, large D Democratic Party. What are we supposed to say about that? So instead of saying the unhoused, you have to say homeless? Like, what's the deal? Do you understand the mindset that goes into unhoused? That has more that doesn't make them look like the people they're just homeless because they want to be mindset. Housing insecure, person who immigrated, what are you supposed to say? Third way? See, y'all are short on the solutions unless I'm missing another article. Seminar room language. This is interesting. Critical theory. Now, Dr. Crenshaw was one of the founders of critical race theory. Derek Bell, so many other people. So you got guys in Florida, and on the Republican side at MAGA, banning critical race theory, something that's not even actually taught in K-12 schools. This is what my next book is about, on trigger words, right? You can't, but now the Democrats don't even mention it. Well, the fact of the matter is that Democrats were never using critical theory or critical race theory in their language because it wasn't necessary in campaigning. But the way you put it in here, it's not representing that. You can't talk about cultural appropriation. So like Kim Kardashian can build a whole career off of stealing from other people's cultures, or what's some girl's name, or woman's name from Wicked, Ariana Grande, be switching up, like races, weekly, or there can't be a conversation about respecting people's cultures. Some of these terms, like I literally gave these as vocabulary terms in my class today on intercultural communication. We talked about all of this, Latinx, BIPOC, like these are all things we talked about. So if we can't talk about systems of oppression so no one's being oppressed anymore, is that what we're talking about? Using the term oppression versus something like Overton window, we can talk about levels of language, but to say that these are things that should be avoided, so I can't talk about making a safe space. Donald Trump built his whole career on othering. I can't say that. Privilege, everybody has, most people have some form of privilege. I don't have white privilege, but I have male privilege. Depending on where I go, I got nationality privilege. I'll get treated better than some people having a U.S. passport than some people would in their own countries. That's a privilege. If I have to deal with sexual assault in some way, shape, or form in my own world, no one's going to ask me what I was wearing. That's a privilege. I can't talk about that as I work to end the privilege. Body shaming. Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, just this week were body shaming Pritzker. Pritzker, who needs to spend more time in the gym and blah, blah, blah. They body shame as part of their career. These are the guys who won. So I'm not saying we should, people who are voting Democrat to start body shaming, but how do you not address issues relating to obesity in this country? Or the shaming that comes with people that look like they're quote unquote overweight, out of shape, so on and so forth. This country has always body shamed people. That's something that normal people don't want to discuss. I think that this is absolutely ridiculous. I think that many of the reasons that Democrats who are voters stayed home, there are many, but one of the reasons is because they feel like Democrats ran away from issues. They felt like Kamala Harris spent too much time trying to cater to the Liz Cheney types of the world, the moderates, the Republicans and the independents, and shied away from people who are part of this community where these issues are real. I don't know if, why aren't you throwing disability on this list? Is there a section on ability here? But furthermore, to the point, when you look at people who are winning just recently, in places like Iowa, Florida, like two Democrats won in areas where Kamala Harris didn't even win. And look at Zohran Mamdani, who is using, even if he's not using this direct language, I don't follow all of his speeches, but I know he's using some of this stuff. And yes, he's running on affordability and all of these other types of stuff, but he's not running away from these things. I look at the rising star out of Texas. I can't believe his name is escaping me right now. But you know what I'm talking about. The 30-something year old. I'm gonna look up his name as I'm talking because I'm getting frustrated that I can't remember it. But anyway, he is using this language and he's talking about racism and the like. So what are you talking about here? What are you talking about here? And the fact of the matter is, James Tallarico, I had to look it up, y'all. I had to look it up. James Tallarico. If Democrats are going to run from this language and run from running on these issues and talking about the issues, they're going to lose a lot more voters. And yes, people have to be regional specific. They have to be county specific. They have to be, citywide specific. Make sure that they're speaking on using terminology that they are that relates to the communities that they are trying to win the votes on. But this idea that Democrats need to run away from this type of language is really problematic. And it doesn't actually reflect the energy. People act like Democrats lost so tragically. Yeah, we lost the House, lost the Senate, so on and so forth. But Kamala Harris didn't lose by that many, few million votes. And I believe the margin was smaller than when Trump lost to Biden. So that's one thing. The House, it's a razor type majority. It's not like it's 200 plus to 5 or something like that. Or I'm sorry, like 400 something to 7. It's not like that. They're both for the 200s. That's the thing. Senate, more work needs to be done there. But the majority of special elections, like the overwhelming majority of special elections that have been happening since the last presidential election, have been won by Democrats. And some have shied away from this language. Some have embraced this language. And you didn't have on this list, third way, defund the police on this list. That's not a term I'm a fan of. I think it's very problematic. And I think that different language should be used to actually talk about pre-funding the community as opposed to defunding the police. But most Democrats, actual candidates, never ran on a defund the police narrative anyway. So maybe that's not why that's not here. But this is really problematic. And these Democrats are spending all of this time trying to appeal to the manosphere and a quote unquote manosphere, and I think that's a real problem. They're doing the same thing that Kamala Harris did in terms of neglecting other groups, and y'all got to do better. Y'all got to do better. Y'all got to do better. And so this idea of, and I'm all about like not having political extremism and all of that. I'm completely fine with having that conversation. I want to pull up one other thing before I sign off here. I'm all about like having that conversation about dialogue. I'm all about having that conversation about, are we appealing to the people that we're campaigning to. But this idea that um, Democrats have to stop using all of this language. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Let me see if I can find this one other article that I wanted to bring up that talked a little bit about our response to some of this stuff as well. And I know what I have. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. I'll talk about it another day. I think I said enough. I think it's been pretty strong, but this is a problem. So what are you going to do about the term genocide? Like, are you not supposed to use genocide as it relates to Israel Palestine? Because genocide scholars, many are calling it that. A lot of Israeli organizations, some are calling it that as well. You got Democrats now who are voting against sending offensive weapons to Israel and the like. I mean, all weapons are offensive in some way, shape, or form. Where do Democrats go with that? Some people argue that was a big reason that Kamala lost the election. So, but was her coziness to Israel and the like. And I'm not the expert as it relates to that, but I think that it's a real problem that people need to pay attention to. So yeah, I think that if Democrats go this route, they are setting themselves up for more losses. And if they set themselves up to sound more like Republicans, particularly MAGA Republicans, in terms of the language they don't use, if they start targeting issues like trans issues, I saw a story with a trans family, a family that has a trans daughter who left the country entirely and talked about their party abandoned them. The Gavin Newsoms of the world, they all felt abandoned by them. Is that what we want? Because it's just going to lead to fewer people voting, and it's going to lead to MAGA extending its hold. And Democrats are winning in spaces where they're standing up. And they're fighting. A lot of people in the party want fighters. They see Mamdani and the Talaricos and the Crockett's, and the Justins, and they see them as fighters who are not going to shy away from this. So I understand the third way's mission, and get rid of not having extremism and the like, but this type of mindset is a recipe for disaster. Let me know what you all think. Peace.